Yeah, I mean, they're saying 6 or 7 inches here. I mean, we might be down for a couple days. I know there's more winter weather coming to everybody around. Like, what do you do? This is the things that it's fun seeing inside the groups, all the different struggles, I guess, if that comes out of winter weather, right? We think of, I know you think of it, we think of it all the time if you've got like maintenance people that you've got scheduled,
Sure.
right? But I know seeing people about, hey, we're having trouble getting people to come in. I think the interesting though, I saw this post. I want to chop it back and forth. Is you get people in, but then you got to dry the car. That seems to be the difficult part when it's cold. Let's have a joke, but let's have some fun and really get into it because it seems basic enough to think, well, yeah, but we do. I mean, you got to dry the car in the cold. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously with leaf blowers and, blowers you can get, like the Metrovacs and stuff like that now. I mean, blowing off your car, drying your car's never been easier, but it's always a challenge in the wintertime. And you just got to take more time. I mean, once the weather changes here, for those that don't know, we still see 30s. We're not going to see 10, we're not going to see 5 degrees. I understand that, but we still have mornings that, get delayed or something might freeze, the water might freeze. So we do see the 30s, we do see the low 40s, into the middle of the day when it's real winter here. And the first thing when the changing of the seasons into fall winter comes, we just tell everybody, our whole team, whether you're putting on a coating, whether you're about to do paint correction, or you're just trying to do some maintenance, you need to take longer with blowing the car, blowing the cracks, blowing the crevices. I think that's just kind of normal everyday thing. I mean, I guess I see everybody struggles with it, but I'm a little confused. And again, we have this joke inside of some group chats. Everyone's confused that it's wintertime. They live in a place with winter and they get confused about winter.
But you're right. I think that this is what some people, it is interesting where you go, hey, you do need to take longer, but we don't. We don't want to take longer, right? We want to get that car in and out. We're used to blowing and going. The parts when it comes to drying, I think that is interesting. You said blowing out the cracks. It's always, and we'll get into here in a little bit with your ceramic coating in the wintertime and things. We'll get into that here in a second. But a towel, right? And you mentioned the blowers. The blowers have definitely transformed. We've talked about it plenty of times. We've gotten into what do you like to use, what type, but the towel, the twist dry towel that we have and that others have that are out there seems to be the best number one towel to be pulling water off. But even now, I know even sometimes I can sense that it's just not pulling as much off. And so we saw this post from somebody. They said, hey, recently our drying towels, well, they're doing absolutely zero drying. When we get them, they were perfect. One wipe and dry. But is it something that we're doing? Because now he's saying he doesn't know if it's too much heat in the dry, right? So let's go over all these things. Is it the cleaners that they use when they're washing it? Is the heat in the dryer? He asked, hey, do I have a sealant buildup? We can all start asking these questions. Why is my towel not drying?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be a variety of things, but you and I both know there's some drying aids people are using that really will funk up some towels. I mean, there is some aggressive chemical and it'll funk up some towels. It'll definitely build up on towels. I think one thing people make a mistake on, I honestly think people wash too many towels in cold water. First of all, your water heater, the water by the time it gets to your washer, your dryer, if you're doing them at home, even commercially, at the end of the day, at least wash on warm. But if I have towels with a bunch of buildup on them, I don't have any problem washing on hot water because remember, it's not going to melt. If it's not going to melt the fibers at the temperature that comes out of the tap. That's just not going to happen.
So we're always when the taught, right, the lesson, right, something got passed down from somebody at some point in time of, hey, you got to be careful with microfiber towels and heat.
Yes.
Okay, but that's in the dryer. It really isn't in the wash. So I'm so glad you said that. Like, if you got a dirty towel, you got to have hot water. Like, you do. And even if you get warm water, just having some
kind of
temperature to your soap.
Some kind of temperature. Like, people, look, man, so many myths have been passed down because somebody wants to sound smart on the internet. And I can tell you, for those of us that have been using microfiber for a long time now, that's BS on the internet. Okay. Those of us that wash, you got to realize I got 5 trucks running. I got a shop. I mean, you used to wash towels for car washes and dealerships and, as a side business to your chemical business. When you're talking about washing thousands of towels, you learn a thing or two. You screw up a thing or two. This internet scarcity around washing a towel is literally like the silliest thing in the world. Most of the time, you can copy exactly how you would wash like a funky beach towel. Okay. Go to the beach. You have a day out there. It's out there. You spilt some food on it. You did some things out at the beach. Cool. Suntan lotion. You're going to put it in some hot water. The only thing you veer on is go with a low temperature setting on a dryer. Because again, even a low temperature setting on a dryer is not going to be hot enough to, for most of us, provide damage. And again, guys are going all of this way and not understanding it could be a product you're using on these drying towels. That could be a case that they could be ruining towels.
So we were asked inside of our hyperCLEAN specialist group, right? Can slick be used as a drying aid? Of course, and it's a great drying aid. But what is the hang up with some others? I haven't, people have asked me, hey, what's the cross between this and that? And
look, I think there's a lot of people that are taking, and we didn't plan on having this type of discussion, but it's here, so let's talk about it. Companies that are trying to get a lot out of a drying aid and saying, oh, our drying aid lasts 9 months. You and I both know, pulling those formulas apart, exactly what's happened there. What's happened is they have put a lot of, whether that's quality ingredients or not quality ingredients, a lot of junk in the formula. And that junk has all kinds of adverse reactions with things like fibers, with car paint, maybe with trim. Maybe, like I always say, if you're getting this super dressed up look from your drying aid on your trims, you can guess what's in there. What would shine up your trims? Tire shine. Well, tire shine gets on a towel. You and I've had to clean up tire shine before. I was always taught one thing. If tire shine touches a towel, that towel's trash. Do not throw that in the wash. Do not throw that in the dryer. So just do extrapolation from there. If you have these things gunking up your towel, what if it is something on the level of getting tire dressing on your towel? You've washed plenty of towels. Those towels are never right again.
No, not fun at all. Not fun at all.
And by the way, they were just, that's how you were taught, right? If you got tire dressing, like we did this with like a wash mitt talk. It was like, hey, if you have wash mitts and they like land in some type of dressing, throw those things out. We're not going to wash them. We're not going to clean them. It's not going to come out. You're going to get it all over the paint. You're going to get it wherever it touches. And so I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is happening is you may have some of that sticking around in your towel. And by the way, that ain't never coming out.
All right. So how much do you go through and like dig and pick out of your towels while you're doing the wash, right? Or your guys are doing the wash or whatever. Because we saw this post inside of our group. Somebody struggled with having to go back and polish, correct, fix a mistake. And that mistake was because there was something inside of their towel. They went to go dry something and I unfortunately share a washing machine with others in my house.
Yeah.
Like most all of us other people, right? Like most of us don't get our own washing machine for their towels. Well, we had a recent washing repair. They pulled out sticks. They pulled out junk. They pulled out all kinds of stuff and I'm going, hold on a second. My towels were being washed in this washing machine that had all this junk. Now it was in the filter. But okay, it had to have been in there at some point in time.
Sure.
Like it really can become a problem with what you're doing with your washing machine. Trust me, I learned that firsthand. And a $580 repair bill to go along with it. That was
no, there's no question. I mean, you and I can say this pretty regularly. Like everybody's made a mistake with a towel. I mean, everybody's marred some paint, maybe even scratched some paint. I mean, we've all learned hard lessons. The one thing I have taught everybody that works for me is when you're done with a towel, it needs to go into a bag or, a laundry bag or a laundry basket in your shop or whatever it is you have. And you can't really allow that to become something that can be gotten to by the elements. So there needs to be some sealable, cut it off from something falling in there. That's number one. When you're mobile, leaves, things like that, you've been around, the wind blows, something can blow in there. So that's number one. I think the other part of it is for me that I've really, tried to tell people is, hey man, when you pick up a new towel, all you got to do is just give it a once over, run your hand over it visually. We all pick some things out of our towel. It doesn't matter the amount of precautions you take. Microfiber is very, 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 sticky when it comes to picking up stuff. And that's one of the things that makes it good to use on car paint or on an interior. But there's a negative to that. And so you just got to live with it. You got to go over your towels a little bit. I see people being really dramatic about this, been training the same thing for 25 years is like one of their big things. Guys, you can hold the towel up, look on both sides, and you can usually find something on there. If something's on there that's going to harm your paint, you're going to be able to see it.
All right, so I saw this post. I thought it was funny. And right below it, somebody was giving their opinion on wheel cleaning. And been a pro for 15 years.
Oh, did he put
if you
that in
got
the post?
90%, what was it, 99% of all wheels, just acid, scrub, and rinse, and you're good to go, right? So you get this 15-year pro vet.
Oh, well, hold on. I think the post you sent me said just spray the acid. You don't need to scrub.
Oh, okay. But great job. You read even better than I did.
Yeah, just spray it with acid and go. Blow and go.
You get people that want to voice their opinion, 15 years, been a pro, and then you see right above it, which is the post that really got me going and wanted to go through the comments and, dig into it and see what was going, because they wanted to know, why couldn't we just have an exclusive only professional group? Like, all of the problems would be solved. We would get to share information back and forth, and everything would just be, if we could just have pro only groups. And
I actually will say this. I don't care whether somebody's a professional. I care that they're professional online. Right? So it's like, I want everybody to come to the hyperCLEAN specialist group on Facebook. If you're a weekend warrior, if you're a pro, I just ask that you handle yourself with some professionalism. And that's where everybody, that's why he's asking or talking about the wrong question. Wrong question isn't that these groups don't exist. It's that they're not professional acting. I'm not even talking about professional as in a job. I just think the things we see in other groups all are fixed with moderation. If they just monitor those groups and cut that stuff out, it would have ended. You've been around those groups longer than me. That would have ended 10 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever the number is. But, you have unprofessional things going on in groups because it's unprofessional. If you go into hyperCLEAN, we're mostly making car jokes, or somebody's sharing a problem, or somebody's showing you a finished product. But that's all monitored that way. And so again, not understanding that somebody has to take the group seriously to monitor it, which isn't the most fun job in the world. You and I can say that, but you don't need a professional only group. You just need people that are held to accountability to be professional human beings and not act like idiots on the internet. But that doesn't happen.
The interesting comment about, well, newbies would learn, and, it's great to learn from these people and this and that. I want to kind of flip it around the other way, because I don't think we have a lot of newbies that listen to us, right? Most of us have been doing it around for a bit, pro or quote unquote, whatever, right? Been cleaning cars for a bit. Let's just leave it at that, right? We've been around the block for a few times. Should we take a stop in our around the block the next time to help somebody? Right? Somebody says, I'm a newbie and I need help. I really got to ask the question now, should we even stop to help them? You go, oh, how dare you? Well, how dare I? I wonder if they will listen.
For sure.
Am I wasting?
And by the way, that's not an
time?
age thing. That's not an age thing that you're saying. It's like, could be a 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old that I think we've all been, I think there's a real thing to talk about in society that 10 to 20% of people are ruining it for everybody in a lot of different facets of life. Okay. And what I hear from people that have been doing this a long time, whether that's they've been a tinter a long time, they've been a PPF guy a long time, they've been doing detailing a long time, they've been installing coatings a long time, is they all have 5 to 10 stories of how someone new wasted a bunch of their time when they tried to help this person. And what happens from that is a lot of people go, I'm not going to do that anymore. I didn't feel it was beneficial. That person did what they want to do. We hear this a lot from people that are trying to help just normal customers that come into a retail detailing space, right? That just sells chemicals of all kinds of different brands. And they go, people stand there and argue with me. You can go to something like a car show or a boat show, and I know people are attending those. Guys like Brian are attending those. People will come up and ask you a question just to argue your answer. I mean, that's what they do. You don't know what you're talking about. It's like, buddy, you walked up to me. Oh, I didn't walk you down. Like, you walked up to me and asked me a question. And so I think a lot of this, what everybody has to kind of understand is I don't think guys like us don't want to be helpful, privately to people and, answer a question. But, you have enough people not listen, or you have enough people not reciprocate or support or do the things they should do after being helped. I think that help goes away. And I think that's the economy we're in right now, is that a lot of people just don't want to help because they've been burned a time or two by a new guy starting out.
Well, and I know that listeners that are in other groups will see questions. And sometimes I see some of our listeners, people that I'll see them, give a response, but most of the time I don't, right? Most of the time I don't think our listeners interact too much in some of the groups that we see. And that's why I was saying I just had to ask the question out there for us to kind of think about. Like, is it something that we should do? Like, should we go and talk to people in groups that have
hold on.
questions?
You're a better. I mean, you almost have experience many of us don't have. I mean, you kind of started the company that way, and I think you saw some positive from it, but I mean, eventually you kind of said, I don't want to do this anymore, right? I mean, isn't that kind of where you got to?
It became monotonously dumb. Like, you've got to do it over and over, and we'd all joke about, hey, there's always the same questions, right? Like, and it seems to be though that every time people give answers that are real answers, then it's, gosh, you don't ever know which way it's going to be taken by the guy that asked it. Then are they going to
Sure.
argue? The people want to argue. Did what they asked? Did what you say? Did it solve the problem? Like, and then there's so many times, right? I'll put something out here, right, and you'll go, man, it's so hard to answer off of a photo. You just go, man, why do we have this? Should we have? What question? And, it's just a question to kind of throw around in our heads. Because inside of these comments, I saw it. And that is the next kind of question, which is interesting. Well, then you should just go to one of those paid, like, mentory things. And,
Yeah.
we see
Well, the other
guys
thing is, other people, there also is something of this, like, you got to learn some of this on your own. You got to go out and do the work. What I think has happened, and I'm not even saying the professional market. I think this is a lot of, the local neighbor that watched a YouTube video of a guy saying detail out of your garage and take care of your cars, which we're all for. I mean, I want to see people do that. But guess what, man? You're going to screw some stuff up. You're going to learn a little bit. But you have to be, you have to put your ego away and go, I'm going to learn some hard lessons here, but I'm going to do my best to try to do it well, which is why we're huge advocates. Be careful what you listen. Be careful who and what you listen to on the internet. You better be very cautious about that. But also, you're never going to take out the fact that you're going to have to learn some tough lessons. And what everybody wants to do is they want to skip to the front of the line.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no skipping to the front of the line. You can find reputable people, especially online now. You can ride with them, learn the basics, see what's going on. That's why I'm a big advocate. If you're a beginner out there, you have no reason to be buying from 4 and 5 and 6 chemical brands. Like, you have no reason. By the way, I didn't do that. So this is not me advocating because I own hyperCLEAN. I didn't do that. But you have a similar story. I mean, guys like Brian Mildren, guys, like our guys down in Phoenix. I mean, I can go state by state, somebody who's been successful that they absolutely don't jump brand to brand, and they don't have 52 brands of products in their shop. And everybody thinks they're going to outsmart everybody, and everybody thinks they got the new way, and you use this sealant from this company and this white product from this company and this coating from this company. And even there's people that aggregate products that way. I got news for you, man. That's nonsense. I mean, most of the time you're going to get much further just learning the basics by understanding chemicals in one person's lineup, but also you have to learn your processes along the way. Without your processes being honed in, how are you going to test product? Really think about that. You're not going to test product. You don't even know what you're looking at. I certainly didn't when I started out. And I think that's what's getting everybody off base is they think, well, this will cleaner, and then I'm going to use this from this company and that. It's like, okay, man. I mean, I just don't know anybody successful doing that.
No, I want to ask you this question because it was asked me, why don't I, and then we, right? You could do it both ways. Do one of those like paid things where people pay us, right?
Dude, I get that question like 5,000 times a week.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we've joked back and forth. Well, what would we have to charge? Well, you just get thousands of people in it, then you don't have to charge as much. You just go,
no.
Wait, what? Like, I don't know that I don't know that I really want to do something like that. When I see the people that are doing it, I guess maybe if we were old and retired and we'd sold businesses and, I think maybe I could have some fun with something like that. But to see the guys now, and you see it, even people that have been around us and now they're popping up with mentoring others, or, there's guys that run these groups. There was that one guy, something entrepreneurs or something. I mean, there's all these different things that pop up randomly for about a year and then they go away. Like, it does seem like people want to capture if they haven't been able to do it. Like, they didn't really want to stay in business, so they wanted to, then go teach people how to do something.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason we talk about charging, if you are actually busy enough, the number you'd have to charge to walk away from your actual business would be a lot bigger than people would think. And I say that pretty readily about anybody in business. I mean, if I wanted to go learn, business philosophy from one of my extremely successful people that we detail for that are worth 500 million or more, what do you think it'd be for them to give up just an hour of time, just 2 hours of time, let alone 3 days or a week or anything like that? And so as you get more success, it's very difficult to take a step away from the things that you have going on in your business, because once you have momentum, there's so many projects on your plate, not in a negative way, that if you take a week away, you've now maybe set yourself back 4 and 5 weeks because you're behind on what should have taken place that week that you were training. I don't really have any animosity for people that run trainings. I mean, we've stated our case on here, long ago. Would I do it? Certain people, absolutely, but that number is extremely tiny. I mean, it is a lot smaller. There's very few people that I would ever advocate. There's a lot of people I'd say you could go learn a skill from, but anything business related, I think that largely. And by the way, this is outside of detailing businesses. The entrepreneur bro, the people selling these courses, all this kind of stuff. Hey, look, man, good on them. They're running a business. Would I be a part of it? No. I mean, most people you'd want to learn business from are definitely not selling business courses.
Yeah. It is interesting when you get into them and you start seeing under the hood in a sense, and you go, interesting. All right. We saw this that I think is interesting. I think many of us have seen it. We've been scratching our heads similar to that. As we transition over to some coding questions, right? Like, as we mentioned, it's cold out. We've got a question out of the group laying down tray. And I've seen this a few times, right? My point. I've seen it a few times, scratching the head, right? We're seeing it. We're not really understanding what's going on, all right? So it says temperature is 53 with the humidity of 67. I love the idea that he already has a humidity gauge.
100%.
Right? Like,
100%.
He's in it, right? If he knows he's got the humidity, and it is important. It is. Yep. We do have to talk about, from the very get start of this question, you do automatically have to talk about if it is lower temperature and it's lower humidity, what happens, Nick? Same as the drying of the car, the sweat is what? It just takes what?
It just takes a little longer, right? I mean, so it's the same thing. And if you look at, Vegas, my shop, whether we're working in someone's car collection, the temperature goes up, you see a certain reaction. The temperature goes down, humidity goes down, you see a certain reaction. Temperature goes up, humidity goes up, you see a certain reaction. This is every coating I've ever worked with is always going to be dictated a little bit installation by the environment. And the environment is basically temperature and humidity. And so, yeah, it's great that somebody's already, aware enough to put those things into the question, right? I mean, I think that's beneficial for all of us.
Agreed. All right. So he says beading starts 45 to 60 seconds. Beading is our flash. You will see a little bead start to form on lines. He says, I wait roughly 90 seconds and then begins leveling. And he's got the different photos there. You familiar with the post that was made?
Yeah.
You're familiar with what's going on. So he's trying to understand what's happening. He tried the reactivation technique that you've taught. For those of us that want to learn that technique, you can go to the hyperCLEAN YouTube channel, and we do talk about it there. So walk us through, as he goes and wipes off this, doesn't seem to help, has what basically looks like, like a big giant high spot over the whole area.
Sure.
It's not a high spot, but that's almost in a sense what it looks like. Some smearing, some darkening,
some ghosting. Yeah, a lot of things going on there. So, first of all, a lot of people said good things in this post. Did you get water on your applicator? That's the first thing to address. We've all been, you ever did the back of the old Cadillac Escalade? You definitely had that because you could never get all the water out. You could have kept that thing for 3 days. The water would have still come out of there. So some things you had to live with and be a little bit, frightened about. But look, we've all been there, right? So the water on your applicator,
right?
It's horrible.
You just wipe and you go, crap.
Yep. And then you feel your applicator and you go, that's not coating, that's water. And you can feel it. I mean, you could always feel the difference. You knew when your applicator got wet when you went back and you're like, oh, yep, there's some water there. So that was a great thing everybody said. But I've been watching a phenomenon happen that we've talked about several times here, and we're going to explicitly talk about it now. There are a lot of polishes and a lot of compounds that have come out, let's call it in the last 5 to 7 years, 5 years especially, that are very, very heavy oil-based formulas. Heavy, long, excruciatingly long work times. Like you could they'll never cake up, as a term that we used to use. I mean, you could work them with a polisher till the cows come home and they'll never cake up. Not saying that means it's all oil. I would be very, very hesitant to believe how long some of these last. It's not heavy oil content. And you have clear coat systems changing at manufacturers. We're seeing this a lot, and this happened to be on a Ford. And we have seen something happen across the board on Ford's new, whatever they've done to their paint system. We've definitely seen an uptick in this. And here's what causes it, to the best of my ability, making it as simple as I can. When you have heavy oil on the surface and then you don't do, and unfortunately it's kind of an excruciating panel wipe. You got to be extra sure, extra careful, spray extra, wipe extra, maybe go around a second time, check some areas while you're looking for spots where water might be still coming out of the body lines, whatever. One of the things that we're seeing is this oil is all in the paint system from the compound or the polish, and then we're not prepping it properly. And as soon as we start laying down some coating, we're getting a reaction between the coating, solvents, and the oil, causing it to start to react in I wouldn't even say a bad way, just an abnormal way. Sometimes you'll just see the panel get overly dark where it doesn't make sense. You're like, why is this so dark? If you leave it there, you're going to see some ghosting effect. And I'm telling you, one of the things that people don't talk about, man, as many people as we've seen do compound and polish, they're solving a lot of their issues with heavy oil content, i.e., they're getting no dusting by adding tons of oil they don't need to add. We would call that irresponsible, and actually a conversation we've had a million times about our compound and polish line that we're working on, that if you up that oil content, you are getting an adverse reaction if you don't get all of that off the surface and out of the pores, or et cetera, however you want to say it. That's what we're seeing in a lot of cases.
When we see it, right? Like, let's say we're this guy and we're wiping.
Sure.
What should we immediately do?
Should immediately, if you can't reactivate it, which he couldn't, go ahead and polish the area, get it off. And that should be super easy if you catch it quick. I mean, you would agree with that. The thing you don't want to do here is go, oh, there's a problem, and keep going. Just stop yourself, get it off there. Now I am going to go to an absolute heavy wipe. I am just going to go over that area 1, 2, maybe even 3 times to put my mind at ease. And I guarantee you don't see it come back. In most cases, again, if you have water on your pad, that's the same thing. You switch to a new pad, the problem stops. You don't get water on it, it stops. I think that is the most, it's just what we are hearing the most, what's being brought across my desk the most. And we've almost batted 1,000 with telling people that's the problem. They go and do a more thorough prep and they text me back and go, solved all my problems.
So the laying on thick, what about that? Is that?
Yeah, laying on thick is something that we always need to go back to, because everybody takes that terminology differently. What I think's laying it on thick to the next guy laying the coating on thick, it's always a little bit different. Look, man, you don't want it dripping down your panel. Let's be clear, but you want to put a healthy amount. And if you feel like, you're rushing around or it's flashing really quickly on you, you go to a few things. Am I laying it on too thin? Do I have water on my pad? Or did I not prep the panel and I'm seeing a reaction to the compound or polish I may use? And that'll serve you pretty well.
So you mentioned earlier about some systems about blowing air, right? And as we get into this, we talked about with the cracks, the water coming out, right? That is something that a big reason why any of us, doesn't matter if it's at our house or if it's at a shop or mobile, whatever. I mean, that's a big reason why we should have some type of blower system. I've seen posts, and it is a lot of fun while we are ready and embracing, the weather coming. There's plenty of people celebrating, they're weeks away from opening, weeks away from, the launch of their season. And a guy made a post about his new vac system that he has. I'm curious for you, is this a time that if we're about to, reopen, relaunch, there's people with vac systems, what's your system? You've been researching systems, I think. Are you gonna look for a system that is dual purpose, blow and, or what's your thoughts on that?
Here's what I come out on. I don't think a lot of this stuff, sort of like a lot of the tools and stuff that we get asked about, from wheel brushes to interior tools. I think you and I would say that we've gone down a lot of these rabbit holes, for our company, and there's not a lot of high quality stuff. A lot of it is like just good enough, just barely above average. I think vac systems are probably on that level, right? I mean, unless you're willing to go to the old car wash, vac systems, you're going to give up some stuff. So it is hard for me to switch out of a rigid or a shop vac, or because, I'm not saying that I've tested everything or talked to everybody, because I haven't. But the reason I would get a wall mounted system here is just so it looked a certain way, so it stored a certain way, made things a little easier to work. But as far as like something that's going to perform better than most of the large shop vacs out there, I think you're getting pretty nominal return. Now, any company wants to reach out that is in this world and hears this, I'm happy to have a conversation. I'm certainly not thinking, but I've tried a lot of these systems. So have you, especially in your career. I think now it's about being partnered and buying from a company that, hey, if something goes wrong, they'll take care of it. I don't know that you're getting that much bigger of a performance, I guess, is my take on all of this. But for looks and aesthetics and ease of use and put away, like there's no doubt there's some value there.
Cool. All right, final question Manny asked. This is a great question, Manny. It opens up a whole lot that I'd like to just chat back and forth on, because he wants to know about clay bar, right? What's out there? He doesn't feel like he's been using the best. Wants to kind of pick some people's brains. These are the questions I do like. It's interesting, when they're asking different groups, they're asked in other ways than people just, so I love how, people interact inside the hyperCLEAN specialist group. It's a great question to ask. Let's go down that journey of clay bars. I'm just go ahead and say from the start, I'm not using all the stuff that's out there. I go and look, and I am surprised at how much is out there for clay, right? You got disc, you got mitts, you got towels, you got bars, right? You got so many different clays. I think there's one I even saw a clay spray or something, right? Like there's all kinds of weird things that people are doing for clays. The original that I can always go back to, that Clay Magic, that red one, they had the rights to it. They were the only ones that could produce clay for so long. And then as more people that, were able to produce it because the, what's that thing ran out? Their
patent ran out.
Patent, yeah. Their patent ran out. And so everybody else could produce it. Nick, what are we seeing in all these different, it seems like everybody now has some trinket type of clay.
Yeah, well, look, I got them all sitting here. You and I have talked about this. I got boxes of all of this stuff. We've tested it.
You've tested it.
You stand there while I test. No, I'm just kidding. Here's the thing. I think there's a use for this stuff. Okay, so let's be clear. Do I think there's a use for a clay towel or a clay mitt? We have a clay mitt that I still have some here. It works. The problem is some of the clay towels we've tested, unless you just have minor contamination, it's a lot of extra work. And at that point, you're providing a lot of extra marring that they're telling you you're not doing. And that's our testing. This is not me taking somebody's word for it. This is not me, we're not in the clay business. So I have no reason to bash anybody or anything like that. We don't sell clay towels or clay mitts or, anything that's, we're building ourselves. I'm just telling you what we see. And we had a really heavy contamination situation when you and I were working together at HQ, where
I was working, you were watching.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of watching. That's what I was doing. A lot of watching. So, we found it not to work as well as just an old school clay bar. Now, I'm not saying that's everything, but I'm saying I got a lot done with a fine clay bar where I never really ran even medium contamination. I didn't have an issue with. Now, did I have some things that I came across that you came across that I'd have to get a real heavy clay bar? 1 in 100, but I could see a lot of contamination that all of us come across that a clay towel, clay mitt, those types of things, they're not going to handle very easily. Where a fine clay bar handled all the way up to the toughest level from light to medium pretty damn well. And most of us come up against light to medium. Well, I don't want to come up to medium and have the clay that I chose, the clay media that I chose, start to make my life harder. I have to go over spots 5 times, 10 times. I got to start marring it. I got to start pressing down. So to me, I think they all have a place. Am I super impressed? I'm looking at literally like on this table next to my desk, I'm looking at this box. I got everything from everybody. You name it, we got the clay stuff right here. And my guys have tested it. I've tested it. It's okay. It's definitely not knock your socks off, got to make a change, in my opinion.
So technology got simpler, but didn't get better, or what? I mean, what's happening now with this?
I think here's the thing. Sometimes the way you hold it in your hand, there's no doubt a clay towel, clay mitt, much easier to put in your hand. We found this with a clay mitt, you and I. Hey man, you could do some damage. There's some clay mitts out there. hey, you can rack up some real damage,
Mm-hmm.
and they work. Don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong. You'll get some stuff off the
When that black
surface.
molding starts to come off, and leave that
Yeah,
streak down there, you go,
yeah. You can hammer some paint, but I think sometimes we try to. It's sort of like Tesla and doing the yoke instead of a steering wheel. Sometimes you can mess with something and you can think you've made it better or you've made it more unique, and somehow that's solved the problem. I don't know that fine grade, medium grade clay bars needed solving. To be honest with you, I don't. I never found it as a bad experience or a hard experience or something that I was like itching. Like, hey, can somebody solve this? That doesn't mean I don't see the place for these other things. I just don't think they're very good. And by the way, this is not pointed at any. We have I'm literally looking at like 40 of these different options sitting in this box next to me.
I've always seen the reason for the towel or the mid because you got so much bigger,
Sure,
right?
I agree
Because
with
that's the
that.
problem so many people do with the clay bar. They'll grab a little bit and they'll just sit there and work this, 2 inches at a time going around,
Where
the
you and
body
I
of
are
the
ripping a
paint.
half a clay bar at a time. I mean, if not, if I got a big enough vehicle, I don't even care. I'll just take the whole clay bar. Let's roll. Like, let's get,
Yeah. And you'll
it's,
press it down, right? You'll widen it out. I never did just that little bar.
yeah, me either.
I think that's why people got off to so needing, excuse me, some trinket or something else. I've always wondered why they felt the need to change the clay bar. Was it that at the time? I think also the dropping.
Yeah,
You
I agree with
drop the
that.
mitts, you drop the towel. Not quite as bad as if you drop the clay bar.
Yeah. Well, and I think that kind of shows you maybe not as effective either. Well, you can just rinse it off. It's like, I don't know, man. I mean, contamination, I kind of want it to be, you know, getting the contamination off of it. So if I get contamination on there and I can just rinse it off real easy, I mean, is it really picking up? You start to think through these things. And like I said, I had no preconceived notions. I don't think you did either. When we were carrying a clay mitt, I found some things I brought to your attention. I'm like, hey, I don't really like this as much either. Although that did eat through some real contamination. Ours was probably an argument for if you came through some real heavy contamination, go ahead and just churn and burn because you're
Mm-hmm.
polishing. Like I said, man, I think everybody's going to do what they want. I got to prep a car. I still find it hard to believe with what I've tested that you're going to find the consistency and the great results that you find from an actual clay bar with the synthetic stuff that I've tested. And because we want to serve our customer, all of you that buy from us. If you guys love this stuff, I want to find the stuff you love. Of course, nobody making a clay towel is reinventing the wheel. They're being made in one of two places by one of two companies. So, we wouldn't sit there and act any differently, but I just don't think it's all that high quality, which is why we haven't brought one in. If somebody sends me one and goes, hey, check this out and this is great, then I'll have my mind changed because it's not something I'm dug in on. I think a lot of people get dug in on this stuff. One thing you should know about me is I'm not dug in at all. If it works better, I'm going to use it. I have not replaced a fine grade clay bar. And by the way, guys, fine grade clay bars, the number one place you can find stuff like that. Go to your local paint supply store for automotive. They have a lot of stuff for you to look at in these little accessories that they use in body shops and different places. That's where I could find good clay locally if you're wondering, because sometimes you look on Amazon and maybe something you want is not there. But I say this with all due respect. Like I don't find any of this new clay media to be all of that high quality. The stuff that I've seen, bought, been sent, like I said, I think we're probably on about 50 different avenues now that we've been sent. I'm not overly impressed with any of them.
Right. Well, great discussion. Everybody can continue to voice their opinions over in the hyperCLEAN specialist group. Go on over there. It's in Facebook. Let us know what you're working on. Hop into the comments section and interact with everybody there. We'll see y'all next time.
See you guys.